In this video, I'm going to show you a third version of the Android app, which allows a user to choose some hobbies using checkboxes. But previously, there was a button so that after they used the checkboxes to choose hobbies, then there was a button that sort of made a list from the checked checkboxes. This time, we're going to get rid of the button, and that sort of list of hobbies will be updating as the user checks and unchecks checkboxes. The code for this app can be found at the link shown. So here's now, if you've seen the other videos, the familiar list of hobbies in checkboxes in columns. They were added dynamically, and now, but there's no button this time. So now as the user is choosing hobbies, they are being added and to this list down below and taken away also if you deselect. Okay, so in strings, the hobbies are a list in the resources and the string resources. In activity main, the main difference from what we had previously is that there's no button. That is the main difference, but let me show it to you here in design. Overall, we're working with constraint layout. We have a linear layout, and then in that linear layout, we have 3 vertical layouts, which are empty, which we will fill dynamically, giving us our 3 columns. And then outside of the linear layout, we have a text view to display the hobbies. So that is the activity underscore main. Now let's look at main activity. Okay. So I have here some, I'll call them global. I am using a base. So I'm going to assign the checkboxes IDs, and I'm going to start assigning them IDs from 5,000, just in case 0 is reserved for some reason. I don't want to assume that I can start at 0. And then I'm going to have a list. This is not the list of hobbies, but the list of the user's hobbies. So there's a list of hobbies that I'm getting from the resource array. We'll see that below, but this is the user's list, and it is a mutable list so that the user can add and subtract hobbies. We start off with it, of course, without any elements. Okay, here we are in onCreate. So these will be being defined above onCreate, will be accessible outside of onCreate, and our checkbox event we're going to define the checkbox event outside of onCreate. So that will be useful to have them here. Okay. Here is us getting a code version of the resource array of hobbies. Here is us grabbing the linear layout, and here is the number of children. So this is how many vertical linear layouts I had within my horizontal linear layouts. So how many columns did I have? And the answer was 3, but this will adapt if the person in design changes the number of columns. Looping through the hobbies, I'm going to create the checkboxes. So instantiate a new checkbox, set its text based on the hobbies array, set its ID, this base plus our counter. We want to choose a linear layout, vertical linear layout to place it in. So we are going to the horizontal linear layout, and we're getting a child, and we have our counter, and we're doing an integer division, or a modular division, I should say, by the counter 3. And so this is the remainder when I do the division. So a counter divided by 3, take the remainder, we're going to get 0, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. So we'll be putting them in different, each consecutive one will be in the next column, and then we'll go back to the beginning and start again at 0. Okay, and we're saying that, so we're grabbing the column at this stage, and that is a linear layout, and then we're using that vertical linear layout and adding the checkbox and also giving the checkbox a listener. And here we are at the end of onCreate. So all of our onCreate action is to create the design and add the listener, the checkbox listener. Now here's our checkbox listener. Here we are getting a copy of the text view that we're going to put our hobbies into. And remember that the checkbox listener belongs to a more generic thing of compound, and it has two arguments. Which widget, which checkbox did you just interact with, either check or deselect or deselect. And then here is the Boolean, whether true if you just chose it and false if you just sort of deselected it, if you unchecked it. Remember now I'm working with the user hobbies as a mutable list. So I'm saying that if we have this is checked coming in, and so if it's true, then it's checked, then I'm going to add to the list of hobbies. And so the button view has a text, which I cast as a string, and I add it to the hobby list. Otherwise, if is checked is false, that means that they deselected the checkbox. So here in the else, I should be removing that hobby from my list. It had been in the list because it had been checked, and they're now unchecking it. And so I'm going to take my list and remove the button views text to string. So I'm adding or removing from my array. And then I'm updating the text views text to be that array, and I'm using a join and using a separator of comma space. Now, one thing I lost, I didn't need to lose, but one thing I did lose is previously I had said, if they didn't have any hobbies, I said, get a hobby. So I forgot to do that. So I don't have any if to say that if the user hobby arrays has no elements to say, get a hobby. Easily enough done, I just forgot. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you, sort of the version where I get rid of the button. Just a little sleeker. Okay.